Welcome to this explainer on the Persian Empire. We're talking about the colossal, ancient superpower that literally ruled much of the known world way before Rome ever even hit its peak. I'm absolutely thrilled to dive into this with you today. We're going to look closely at a civilization that essentially laid down the absolute blueprints for how to run a massive, multicultural society. And, we're going to break down exactly how they achieved this, step by step. Let's get right into it. Okay, so when we think of ancient superpowers, our minds almost automatically jump to Rome, right? Rome had the legions, the gladiators, the emperors, the whole shebang. But who ruled the known world before Rome? Well, there was an empire that came long before them, and honestly, its scale was absolutely staggering. We are talking about a civilization that connected dozens of totally distinct cultures, stretching all the way from the Mediterranean Sea in the west, right across the map to the Indus Valley in the east, and they managed to bring all of this under one powerful ruler. Today, we're going to trace this epic story across 5 chapters: the rise of the superpower, organizing a massive empire, the Greek conflicts, culture and achievements, and finally, the fall and legacy. Starting with Section 1, the rise of the superpower, and its birth under Cyrus the Great. So, we kick off our journey around 550 BC. It was a really fractured time, but this brilliant military leader named Cyrus managed to unite the Persian tribes and defeat the Median Empire. Now, what's really fascinating here is the stark contrast in leadership styles. You see, your typical ancient conquerors usually relied on forced assimilation and brutal control, basically leaving shattered pottery and chains in their wake. But Cyrus the Great, he took a radically different approach. He was a deeply wise ruler. Whenever he conquered a new territory, he actually allowed the people to keep their local religions, their customs, and their traditions. Instead of ruling purely by fear, this incredible policy of cultural tolerance instantly built massive, widespread loyalty. It was a real game changer. And because his subjects weren't constantly rebelling against some tyrant stripping away their identity, this unique policy fueled explosive, rapid growth. The idea spread like wildfire. Cyrus swiftly united the tribes, defeated the Medes, and then pushed forward to conquer Lydia in western Anatolia, before successfully taking over the mighty Neo-Babylonian Empire. Through these consecutive victories, Cyrus literally formed the largest empire the world had ever seen up to that point. Moving on to Section 2, organizing a massive empire. Let's look at the upgrades of Darius I. Because, as we know, conquering land is one thing, but actually organizing it, that requires a true visionary. To manage his sprawling, diverse territories, Darius had to completely rethink how a government functioned. So he introduced this concept called the satrapy. This was a distinct province governed by a designated local official known as satrap. Think of this as the ancient equivalent of our modern federal states managed by local governors. It beautifully decentralized the day-to-day operations while keeping everyone firmly reporting back to the central authority. Darius completely overhauled the system to make it run like a well-oiled machine. He didn't just draw borders and appoint governors. He introduced standardized taxes, so everybody knew exactly what was owed. And crucially, he created unified, standardized coins. This was an absolute revolution for commerce. By doing all of this, he built an incredibly efficient administration that made the entire Persian Empire both immensely stronger and significantly wealthier. Now, to tie this sprawling, wealthy empire all together, Darius constructed an absolute marvel of ancient engineering. 2,500 kilometers. That's the mind-blowing length of the legendary Royal Road. It was essentially an ancient superhighway. Honestly, the closest thing the ancient world had to next-day delivery. It allowed messages, merchants, and government officials to zip across the empire at lightning speed. It was literally the physical spine that held this massive administration together. Which brings us to Section 3, the Greek conflicts and clashing with the West. As we know, absolute power inevitably meets resistance. In 490 BC, as the empire kept pushing westward, this tension reached an absolute boiling point at the Battle of Marathon. Now, the Persian military force was massive, and everyone fully expected them to just crush the resistance. But the Athenians executed a brilliant tactical upset that completely shocked the world and proved that, hey, the mighty Persian military was not entirely invincible. The hostilities only escalated from there. Later came perhaps the most intensely dramatic clash of the era, the Battle of Thermopylae. This is where King Leonidas and his deeply trained Spartan warriors made their legendary defiant stand against an overwhelming Persian force led by a new ruler, Xerxes I. And even though that Spartan stand was ultimately doomed, their incredible defiance against the sheer numbers of the Persian military echoed throughout history. All right, on to Section 4, Culture and Achievements. Let's talk about engineering and wealth. So, despite the intense military clashes you probably know from the history books, the Persian Empire wasn't just about warfare and conquest. Not at all. They were a flourishing center of art and engineering. Take their capital city, Persepolis. It was a stunning physical symbol of their immense wealth and power. Just picture the magnificent, sprawling palaces, the walls decorated with intricate, carved stone reliefs showing off the diverse peoples of the empire, and those massive, towering columns holding the whole thing up. Persepolis wasn't just a fortress, it was a breathtaking display of artistic mastery. And beyond their architecture, they were absolute masters of global economics. By actively respecting the different cultures within their borders, the empire transformed into this massive, thriving trade hub that physically connected the East and the West. They actively encouraged commerce and used their immense power to protect international merchants traveling along their extensive, well-guarded road networks, just like that royal road we talked about earlier. Finally, Section 5, The Fall and Legacy, featuring Alexander the Great in the enduring blueprint. Look, all empires, no matter how wealthy or powerful, eventually reached their twilight, and for Persia, the end came pretty swiftly. When you trace their lifespan, you see the incredible rise under Cyrus uniting the tribes in 550 BC, and the tension really peaking at the Battle of Marathon in 490 BC, but notice how fast it unravels at the very end. An incredibly ambitious Macedonian conqueror named Alexander the Great enters the picture in 334 BC. And a mere 4 years later, by 330 BC, the incredible run of the Achaemenid Persian Empire comes to an abrupt end. The real climax happened at the major battle of Gaugamela. Following several intense clashes, this was the moment where Alexander the Great decisively shattered the empire. He hammered the final nail into the coffin by defeating the reigning Persian monarch, King Darius III. With that central power broken, the largest superpower the ancient world had ever seen officially fell. But, and here is the absolute key takeaway for this explainer, their influence didn't just vanish into the sands of time. Their foundational, revolutionary ideas about organized government, their highly sophisticated systems of administration, and their advanced engineering, all of that became an enduring blueprint. And perhaps most importantly, their radical concept of cultural tolerance went on to deeply influence and shape later civilizations across Asia, Europe, and the Middle East for centuries to come. So, I want to leave you with this thought to ponder. The empire might have officially fallen off the map in 330 BC, but did the Persian Empire ever truly disappear? If the ghosts of their brilliant administration, their standardized currencies, and their radical ideas of cultural tolerance still shape how modern governance works today, then perhaps Cyrus and Darius achieved a legacy that outlasts literally any single army. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope you leave with a much deeper appreciation for the world's very first great superpower.